My next guests are on the front lines to fight to preserve the state parks. Carol Ashe served as the New York State Parks Commissioner for nearly 4 years before resigning her post last month. She's now serving as a consultant for the newly formed Alliance for New York State Parks, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the state park system. And Erik Kulleseid is the director of the Alliance. Thank you both so much for your time this evening.
Thanks for having us.
And Erik, as the director, we'll start with you. Just kind of give us an overview of the mission.
Our mission is very simple, plain and simple, to protect and enhance New York's great state park system for current and future generations. It captures it in a nutshell. It's to take what's great and make it even better for the future.
And Carol, you were on the front lines of that debate on whether or not they were going to close state parks. Why did you feel the need to get involved in the private sector?
Well, I think that the major thing that the last 2 years showed us is that much as we think that the general fund could or should have always be there for parks and the 57 million visitors that we have every year, that when it comes time, when we have a crisis, financial crisis, the way that we did over the last couple of years, we can't take that for granted. And so it became perfectly clear that we needed to have a very, very strong voice out there. We need to have as many voices on behalf of parks as we can. And so Erik and I have teamed together to make sure that we can galvanize that support that happened, that kept the parks open last year.
Yeah, Erik, how do you continue to drum up that support to keep people interested, even if there's not that immediate threat of closing the parks down?
Well, you know, the state budget situation is not getting better, so we don't know that that threat has really gone away so much. And parks are just in the news. I think you see, you know, everyone, I think we are certainly trying to capture that spirit from the spring and build those networks and carry forward into the next legislative session. And then also thinking about new funding sources and private sector monies, trying to be more like some of the organizations that have sprung up in the city in the last 3 decades or so when the city went through its own financial crisis.
Yeah, Carol, you really saw firsthand how the parks were used as a bargaining chip. Erik had said, state budget process still isn't going well. Were you surprised that parks got thrown in there?
I wasn't surprised that parks got thrown in there because the way that Governor Patterson approached the budget cutbacks that he needed was to do across-the-board cuts. Parks has always been an extremely lean operation. There was not a lot of fat to cut to begin with. And as we went through across-the-board cuts, it got leaner and leaner, and then, of course, so lean that the only option left was that we would, if we were going to meet our budget numbers, we would have to then close some parks, curtail programming in others. And so I'm hopeful that the new administration takes a look at the outcry that happened last year, understands that parks are an economic driver rather than a drain, and has a different approach for helping and all of those 57 million visitors enjoy themselves and continue to come, and continue to say, I know that that is a place where I can have a really good vacation, and I know I can depend on it being open.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic almost that that was something that might have been taken away from New Yorkers when people use that term staycation all the time. Yeah. When the economy's bad, people visit the parks.
They absolutely do. You know, Carol and I are also fortunate we have the support of the Open Space Institute. We're actually not doing this all ourselves. You know, we are the Open Space Institute has adopted us, so we've got the benefit of an organization behind us. We've got support from foundations. So we are, yes, we're out there. We need to build this kind of thing and prevent it from happening again. Because, right, it is so ironic that in a time when New Yorkers are looking for affordable vacations, that there was a possibility that some of those alternatives would have been taken away.
And Carol, when this whole thing came to light, were you surprised by how many people spoke up in favor of the parks, or were you kind of expecting it?
No, I was not expecting it. And in fact, internally, we would say, what happens if we get to the point when parks need to close and no one speaks up? And so it was heartwarming to see so many people immediately jump into action, support their state parks. Every single portion of the state just immediately decided that this is the place where they were going to make their mark, and this had gone too far in terms of the budget cuts, and they wanted their parks open.
For the people that spoke out, I know a lot of times we have visitors from out of town, out of state, out of country even coming to these state parks, but did you feel like people really got some home ownership over their own park?
Absolutely. You know, you look at what happened in the spring. You had Facebook pages, you know, that saves Thatcher Park and individual parks all over the place. I mean, the Thatcher Park webpage went from 0 to 75,000 or whatever it was, you know, members overnight. And it was extraordinary, that outburst of public sentiment in favor of the parks. It was awesome. And I think also the only thing I want to add to is I think the arguments out there that were also more fully appreciated last year was this whole notion that the parks are economically important to the state, especially upstate. You know, 1.9. You know, there's a report out there done by Parks and Trails in New York, which says the parks are generating $1.9 billion in economic activity for the state. And when you're trying to revamp the upstate economy, parks are critical. You know, these are like national park caliber landscapes that are very important and very important to the future of upstate in particular.
Yeah, Carol, did you try and touch on those points as at your time as commissioner?
Absolutely. And one of the things that we tried very hard to do was to advertise where all of our parks were. How do you get there? We started a website that was very user-friendly. And in fact, this last summer, our visitorship went up by about 4%. So we know that a combination of the weather, that parks were in the news, that people needed to find a place close to home to be able to recreate and get their kids out for a little exercise, that this was all of these things joined together to make a whole new group of people that came to visit the parks, and we hope will continue to visit the parks and become real soldiers on behalf of parks.
Well, soldier education then would be an important thing, making sure people know where to go, know where they can go have a local adventure. How much will education play a part in your newly formed alliance?
You know, I think clearly in the beginning there's going to be a lot of just helping the system keep the doors open, right? Helping get a budget in place, working with the new Cuomo administration. And by the way, we're very heartened by his platform, where his Cleaner, Greener New York, where he talks about the importance of keeping the parks open. But then I absolutely see that kind of spreading the word about parks to new audiences, to the people who, I think there are more people than you think out there who want to go to a state park but don't know how to do it in a way. And you sort of think, how is that possible? Just because they don't know that trail. What's the best trail at Grafton to go to? Where's the place to park and go in and have a great afternoon with your kids? What's best for kids? What's best for teenagers? Those are the kind of things I really absolutely want to be a part of this alliance, is putting that out there.
And Carol, from your perspective, what's the advantage to going private here? You worked in the public sector for so long. Why go to the private side?
I think that particularly in times of economic crisis, that there's a time to be on the inside and a time to be on the outside, particularly with the knowledge that on the inside you really need to be a team participant with whomever it is that is governor, and you really need to help that governor move whatever that program is forward. On the outside, I can and Erik can, I think, use the knowledge that we have from the inside to help frame a program with legislators, to help frame a program with the governor, but have a little more latitude in terms of how we do that. And I think that if we can join in a public-private partnership with the new administration and the legislature, it will only benefit not only our state parks, but the New York State economy as well.
And then lastly, Erik, if people do want to get involved in the alliance, how could they go about doing it?
We are still putting it together, but we have a website. It's www.allnysparks.org. We will have people, there'll be info, and we'll be building that website over time, and keep looking for us.
All right, and we'll put that link up on our website as well. Erik, Carol, I want to thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.